Okay, in this tutorial, I'm going to focus on the three key elements of writing up a good methodology. And I suggest after I complete each one, starting with the plan and then looking at sampling strategies and then going on to data gathering, you might want to pause, discuss it with your group, complete the tasks that you can see assigned for that particular section, and then move on to the next one. Okay. And actually, before you go ahead and write your plan, first thing I would be considering is actually thinking about the type of data you're going to have to gather and how you're going to go about doing it, um, because it helps to have that clear in your mind before you're then going to write about it. So let's just unpack the plan. First of all, you want everything that you write in your method to be readable. So I'm the person engaging with this project. I'm the reader, and you're telling me the story about where you went, how you gathered the data, and why the techniques that you used were appropriate, suitable, and ensured you got good data. And that is the most important aspect to a well-written methodology. It's not how you did it. Yes, you're going to tell me how you did it, but it's actually why you did it that way. And when you tell me why you did it that way, that's based on the fact that you felt that this would give you the best data for the particular research question you're investigating. Because remember, this is all about how am I going to get the data to answer that question? And by answering that research question, that will then allow me to achieve my aim. So let's have a look at this. First of all, we're going to probably have a couple of sentences that discuss where we're going to conduct our study. We're then going to put a map or two. It can be any type of map as long as the map clearly indicates where my study area is. Okay, so a map can often be used to show where within a country and then within an area of that country. You're going to want to annotate those maps maybe with arrows and a few little labels so it's clear. And you're going to want a written descriptive statement on the actual location. You know, where is St Andrews in this case for this study? Next step is to justify the suitability. So you're going to want a bit of writing about why St Andrews is a suitable place to conduct this study. Okay, think about what the study's about. It's about traffic variations. It's about how traffic generates problems and how that affects people's well-being. What makes St Andrews a suitable place to get data for? Because remember, we could go anywhere to do this. So why St Andrews? So think about it's a student town. It's an old historic city. It's got an old road pattern, as part certainly the centre does. It's popular with tourists. It's got residential areas. Think about that in the context of how those factors make this a suitable area. What you then want to do is outline when you're planning on going. Now, if you're writing this once you've been, then you're still got to write it in terms of when you're planning on going. Okay, so in the future tense, and you then want to say why that date and time would be an appropriate date and time to conduct the particular investigation that you're doing. Okay, so you want an explanation. And then finally, you want a quick summary of the data that you will gather or you plan to gather, not how you're going to do it, but just I'm going to gather traffic data by doing traffic counts at 10 different locations across St Andrews Central Zone or something like that. And I'm going to use a simple tallying technique for traffic, and I'm also going to conduct at those same locations surveys of members of the public to gather data that would be what I mean by a basic description. Right, now that's us done with the plan. You can pause now and complete that if you want, or you can move straight on to sampling strategies. Now, why are sampling strategies so important? First of all, you might want to put that as a subheading in its own right. Sampling strategies are important because it shows that you're thinking about the size of data you plan to gather, and you're also thinking about where you're going to gather it from. And of course, the size plays a huge role in the quality of our data. Generally speaking, the bigger a sample we gather, the safer our conclusions are going to be. But time is always a limiting factor, as is finances often, and therefore we more often than not don't get a sample size as big as we would like. Okay, there's only one study in the United Kingdom where the sample is 100%, and that's a census. and we only conduct them once every 10 years. And the reason for that is the sheer time and effort and cost of doing it means you can't do it all the time. So we're doing a sample, and you're going to have to tell me about the sample size for the number of traffic locations. So how many locations you're going to do. And then if you're doing a survey, think about how many people do you plan to survey to get data on how traffic influences their well-being. Okay, you're not telling me how they're going to do it, but just how big. And if you're and you're not telling me the strategy, you just tell me the size. And you've got to say, if it's a survey of people, what are you going to break that down into agenda, into demographics? That's age groups. Are you going to look at the economic status? Think about what's practical. What can you achieve? Okay. So you must justify your decisions. And actually, that's the difference between advanced, higher, and higher. In higher, you just have to tell me what you did, the strategy used. In advanced higher, you need to say why you did that particular strategy. And in this case, the sample size. Once you've chosen your sample size, you've then got to think about the actual locations from which you're going to gather data, which is the second bullet point. Now, you could be gathering different types of data from different locations. You could be doing your surveys of people from different places from your traffic. That's entirely a decision you have to make of what you think would be appropriate. So do consider the locations, and are they the same? You're going to try to get the same data from both locations. Where in St Andrews is going to be from, think it through, think what's appropriate. Remember, a lot of that's going to be dictated by the size that you're choosing to do. And then map it out and actually show that map with all those locations and number those locations too, because you need to know where location 1 is. What that means is when you then look at your table of data that you gathered from the trip, you can match that data with that location. So I want to see that map. The strategy that you've used will be either systematic, which is evenly spread across an urban area. It could be stratified, which means where you've chosen those locations. And you would need a reason for why you've chosen the locations, or it could be random. Now, once you've chosen your strategy for selecting the locations that you're going to go, you must justify. Justifying a strategy has got as much to do with saying why my strategy is the best as it is why I think the other strategies would not have been appropriate. So it's legitimate to do both, to be able to say, we did a stratified system because, and you outline it, we found it would be probably more suitable than doing a systematic, if that's the one you've gone for, because. And then just have a little read of this. In an investigation, multiple different strategies can be used to select sample locations because you may be interested in different types of data. So in a real geographic study, because you're doing 3 research questions, you might be getting your data from different locations or in different ways. And therefore, anytime you were choosing locations or locations were being chosen because they're evenly spread or they were randomly selected, you must outline that. If you have multiple strategies at play in a project, you need multiple maps that show the different locations, and you need to explain them. Because there's only one research question here, that's not likely in this mini project. Okay, and that brings us to the last bit. How did you gather data? Now, I will be encouraging you to take some photographs of you actually gathering the data on the day. Because I think photos are very good visual ways of describing something, to show something. You can annotate those photos with which then the reader can look at the photo, look at the annotations, and understand the way you went about getting the project. If you've done a survey, you'd want to include an outline of that survey with the questions. If you've got different question styles that you've used, you're going to want to outline why you use the different styles of questions. So if you had a yes/no question, or a scoring-based question, or a short answer question, or a long answer question, then you're going to want to outline the particular questioning techniques that you used and why they were appropriate. So they need justified. It's not just a question of asking a question. I asked this question. You want to say why you asked that question and why that technique of question was suitable. Okay. So justify your technique. You see, that's the second thing. If there was any sampling used in there, then please mention it as well. And I've said some more information here about the survey. So the strategies you went, and we should have at this point have done some work in class on surveying techniques. So you should have an idea about how you put together a survey.